host, Sabrina, and if you've been watching ETH lately, you'll know it's been anything but boring. We've seen Ethereum climb from 1.5K to over 2.7K. Institutional money is pouring in, and ETF excitement is heating up. But the question is this just another hype cycle, or are we entering a whole new phase for Ethereum? To break it all down, I'm joined by two amazing guests today. First, we have director and lead analyst at Chart Champions, Daniel. Hi, Daniel. It's great to meet you. Could you please introduce
Hello.
yourself and share what you do?
Hello, yes. My name's Daniel. I work at Chart Champions, and yeah, we basically just analyze and trade the charts every day, doing live streams, live trading streams, where we'll go live generally on New York Open and sometimes on the final hour as well of New York session, and we'll
Mhm.
just jump on the charts, trade them, and every day doing live streams of predicting what we think is going to happen. But really, well, for me anyway, I mainly only just do cryptocurrency, but some of the other guys do futures trading. Um, and so yeah, that's a really short. And we also on top of that have like a whole educational course, so we like do the educational side of things.
Mm,
That's
awesome.
a short view of us.
Thank you, Daniel. And next up, we
Thank you.
have crypto KOL, Dusty BC. Hey, Dusty, it's great to have you back. Please give us a short introduction of yourself and share a bit of what you do.
So, hey, Sabrina. Well, thank you very much for having me again. So, yeah, the name, it says right there. Oh, a little bit stuck again, but it says it right there, Dusty BC. I cover crypto news every single day over on YouTube, Twitter, perhaps even TikTok and things of that sort. Just news, fun things, and basically my investment journey. And yeah, I've been doing that for the last 8 years, every single day. Haven't missed one of talking about crypto. And happy to be back.
Nice. Thank you both for joining us today. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to the alpha that you're going to give us today. All right, before we jump in, just a quick reminder we'll be doing 2 rounds of red packet giveaways worth a total of 500 USDT, one round for our existing users and the other for our new users. So when the pop up appears, don't hesitate, click it to claim your reward. And of course, hit that like button, share this live stream out, and let's get started. So let's kick things off with what everyone's been talking about, right? Ethereum's crazy rally. From protocol upgrades to ETF inflows, Ethereum has had no shortage of catalysts. But what's actually fueling this surge? In this segment, we'll break down what's driving price action, how confident the market really is, and whether there's still room to run. So Ethereum has surged over 80% from its April lows, reaching approximately over 2.7K. Beyond the Pectra upgrade, what other factors are contributing to this rally? Maybe Dusty, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So for the most part, I'd say that in the crypto market, sorry, I was quickly changing my camera, by the way, if you're wondering what I was doing right there, is that it goes in phases. And we had ourselves the Bitcoin phase. Bitcoin went above 110,000. Obviously had a bit of a low phase. And I'm not the trader here of the two. That's definitely more on Daniel's side. But I think this was just the time where Ethereum started doing something, because theoretically speaking, it was quite undervalued for the majority of the past year here, where Bitcoin went from 70,000 to what, 110. Ethereum was down significantly. And so the best way I can call it is, even besides the new upgrade, it was just quote unquote time.
Mhm. Okay, so we've seen 109.5 million flow into Ethereum spot ETFs over the last 12 trading days. From a technical standpoint, maybe Daniel, are you observing signs of sustained accumulation or potential profit taking?
Yeah, well, so for my opinion on Ethereum is I'm still more bearish on it at the moment because it's been a nice rally, obviously, but it's rallied up into like some really big resistance levels. So for me, this is where if people longed around 1,500, 1,600 around the support, it's already rallied nearly 100%, right? And so we're up into the point of control of the range from back in the October 2023 range on ETH and on Ethereum BTC pair. We're also into a point of control actually from February 2020, so like a really old level. And so, yeah, in my opinion, it's been a nice rally, but this is definitely like a profit taking zone. Not, I wouldn't open any new longs around here. It's a bit late, but that's my view on ETH. Like, yeah, profit taking zone, not really accumulation.
Okay, but just to put it out there, this is not financial advice. It's all just for educational purposes. Yeah, so, just now, Dusty, you mentioned like protocol updates, right? So with Pectra raising the validator cap to 2048 ETH, will we see more will dominance in staking? Like, what are the potential implications for decentralization? Oh, we can't hear you, Dusty.
Let me quickly see. Should be fine from my end. It looks fine. Test.
Yeah, I can hear you
Can you
now.
hear me?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So I don't really see any way, shape, or form as to why that would make sense. Just because it's changing up. It just means there might be going in bigger batches now. But I don't see any reason why somebody couldn't have split it up before. You know, it just makes it slightly easier. But then again, I'm thinking when we're talking about what are we talking about here actually? It's just bundling things together. That's all it does. So decentralization wise or will dominance wise, I don't think anything changes whatsoever, not even 1%. Maybe just that it looks easy, it's more overseeable. I'm not sure what the best English word for that would be. It's easier to see these addresses now being bundled, obviously, whereas before it was perhaps harder to track. But from any other perspective, no, I don't think it changes anything.
Okay. And when large ETH buys hit the market, do you notice patterns in price action or volume that signal institutional involvement? What do you think, Daniel?
I mean, the way that I would look at it is via looking on the order flow. So, Ethereum, I would say you can kind of have an idea, but there's no way of knowing for sure. So you can have like good ideas, of course, if you start to see lots of, you know, over a course of a few hours, like hundreds of millions of buy and sell orders, then we would lean towards, okay, this is likely institutional trading. But there's, yeah, from the way that I look at it, it makes no difference really to me as a trader, whether it's an institution or it's a bunch of random traders at the end of the day. Like, I'm just looking at the volume. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we can have like an idea, of course, because yeah, if it's a very, very high volume, then I would say, yeah, we could think, oh yeah, this is an institutional buying or selling. But yeah, from my perspective, it wouldn't really make much difference whether it was an institutional or just like massive whales, just public people. But yeah, you can definitely see it in the order flow. Yeah.
Okay. And given the current price levels, how should traders interpret recent volatility? You mentioned that you're more bearish right now, right? Do you think that the current price levels show that there's like deeper market instability? Like it's a sign of it?
So the way that I view it, the way that I view Ethereum is mainly looking at the ETH-BTC pair. I know the ETH-USD pair or the ETH-Tether pair is more popular, but I like to look at its strength against Bitcoin. And if you look at ETH-BTC, since actually December 2021, this has just been in a massive, massive bear market, and it's just been down and down and down. And I actually remember during several times over the past like 3-4 years where it's had, pretty nice rallies, and every single rally has just been a lower high for lower. And so I just know a lot of people I see, alt season, but it's kind of like, well, maybe this time they're right, but if history repeats, which it has been for the
Mm-hmm.
past 4 years, it's just another lower high into a massive resistance zone. It's just not looking like anything special. I think Ethereum really, ETH-BTC needs to really get a reclaim of
Mm-hmm.
0.026, and then I would say that's the first sign of strength that it's seen in a while, and then we can look for a rally. I'd prefer to be late to the rally than early, and what I would expect just another lower high. I think it's, in my opinion, it's better to be a little bit late but have like massively increased probabilities of a rally than be early. And the people that have been early on this rally have already lost so much money. So I think it's better to be a little bit late and have better probabilities.
You know, you mentioned the ETH-BTC ratio, right? It has actually like climbed roughly 30% in the past month, reaching around 0.025, which is close to
Yeah.
what you was, right? Um, you know, some analysts are calling this like a decoupling, right? Because Ethereum seems to be doing better than Bitcoin right now. Maybe Dusty, would you like to share like what does this ratio surge actually tell us about Ethereum's current market strength and
Yeah,
investor sentiment?
I wouldn't say too much here. I think the highest point was 0.15 in the past, a few years ago, something like that. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, yes, we're seeing some strength. But
Mm,
even back in the previous run, I think it was around zero point 0.1 or 0.08, something like that. In the 2017 run, I think it was that 0.15. So to have us at 0.025,
mm,
it's basically the lowest point we saw, I believe, back in 2019. We're
mm.
slightly above that lower level, maybe a 2x from that. We're still hundreds of percent away from the higher points of the previous rally. So I wouldn't say this is showing all too much in that way.
In like in the context of things, right? Like
It's
it's
not showing Altseason. It's not showing a decoupling of sorts. We're not even close to anything of that sort. I think we're starting to, or we're gonna start talking about decoupling again once we perhaps break those previous heights, or
Mhm,
once perhaps the ETF inflows are gonna show something so severe, or maybe
mhm.
Trump does something crazy. But as of this point, I've not heard a single person talk about a decoupling with regards to Ethereum, and I don't think it's going to happen for a while unless we see something astronomical in terms of price.
Okay. And you know, there's chatter around Ethereum staking ETFs coming soon. Have you seen like this speculation priced in already on the charts, or do you think there might be room for more upside the moment it gets approved?
For me,
Both. Daniel, would you like to go
Sure,
first?
Daniel.
Yeah. What my opinion on state? Let's say I'm not sure the APY that's offered on Ethereum, but I can't imagine it's more than 5%. If it's 3%, right? So I think staking an asset for 3% APY when it's down like 80% in the past few years is just an awful idea. So but maybe it's not a popular opinion, but I would never stake an altcoin. I think it's if even if you're looking at 15% APY a year, like you're still looking at these altcoins which are just getting destroyed. So in my opinion, I think staking is never a good idea. But nevertheless,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can't imagine someone's like, oh, I'm going to buy ETH now for 3% a year. So I would say it's priced in and not, yeah,
Okay.
not like a massive big factor for the chart, in my opinion.
So you wouldn't see this like as a win for Ethereum, like if it gets approved.
No, in my opinion, no, because I think if someone is staking, then I can't think that Ethereum at 3% is really, I mean, it's nice, but I think when you balance the risk to reward, 3% at APY versus a potential asset which can drop another 50% in the next
Mm-hmm.
year is not a good risk to reward.
Dusty, do you agree?
I agree with everything he said. The only thing I think is perhaps it's not an issue of will people actually stake. It's more or a point. It's more maybe on the regulatory side to have another victory in that sense to make more
Mm,
steps. I'm not even sure if it's good steps, honestly. Like I don't even like real talk. I don't even know if staking as an option is even a good thing because if even the
mm,
founders, you know, if Vitalik is not the biggest fan of staking from the
mm.
perspective that you don't know what you don't know. I don't know if the big money all of a sudden staking all their coins is even that smart. But that's besides the point. I think from the regulatory perspective, might not be fully priced in. It might still be a big deal, even though from the monetary perspective, from the APY, yeah, that's pretty garbage. It's pretty ass. Not gonna lie. I mean, 3%, 3% a year is not worth almost anything. It's not. Nah, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll just take a look at some questions that our audience might have. Maybe let's do this one. How do ETF inflows into Ethereum usually reflect on the chart? Are there telltale signs traders look out for? Maybe Daniel, you can take this one.
Um, Yeah, so for me, I mean, when we refer back to like big ETFs, I suppose the biggest one to refer to is Bitcoin, right? When it had its ETF approved and it entered like a big bear market. So, um, yeah, I'll be honest. The way that I view it is like I don't really not care if there's a Ethereum ETF, because the way that I view it is it's all in the chart. So I actually uh look at zero news, because for me personally, it's like anything that I need to know is in the chart. So I mean, if thinking about an ETF, the few examples that we have in crypto, it generally isn't that good initially. Or long term, yeah, maybe it's can be bullish, but in the short term, it seems to be a bit of a negative factor. But and that would kind of line up with the charts, right? Ethereum's got a nice rally, but it's rallied into resistance. But yeah, from the fundamental perspective on that, I wouldn't really know or like to say whether it's really bullish or bearish. But in the charts perspective, I would say it's, well, rallied into resistance right now, so a pullback would make sense in that regards.
Okay. And another question. So someone actually said Ethereum staking seems to be growing, but does it reduce available liquidity enough to impact price action? What do you think, Dusty?
I have no idea what that means, that question. The staking might reduce liquidity. Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, because you're locking it up.
Nah,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think that many people are. Perhaps, no, I could think perhaps they are staking their ETH, using that as, they could theoretically speak, is still use it as collateral if they wanted to actually still trade. And now we're going off of the idea that people are otherwise using that ETH as collateral anyway, that they, but they could do the same with their staked ETH for the most part. So I wouldn't know why it would take away. No,
Okay.
I would not say so.
All right. Keep the questions coming, guys. We'll move into the next segment first. So Ethereum has been through cycles of hype, doubt, and dominance, yet it somehow keeps coming out on top, right? So in this segment, we're going to explore the long-term case for holding ETH, including like staking yields, upcoming protocol upgrades, and how Ethereum stays ahead of its so-called Ethereum killers. So many investors who held ETH through the bear market are finally back in some profit. From a long-term perspective, how should they think about trimming versus staying in for the next cycle? Daniel, you previously mentioned that it's all about profit taking right now. Do you have like a percentage of how much they should take profit for?
Well, I suppose this would be super dependent on if, or like if you manage to buy it, let's say, because I think it's kind, maybe some people here but bought in at around 1,500.
Mm,
If they're now seeing it at 2,600, I wouldn't close my position down. So let's just say hypothetically, right? You
mm,
longed 1,500 Ethereum for $10,000. Here at 2,600, the range point of control, I would only probably take around $2,500 like off the table, so 25% profit
mm,
taking, and like
mm-hmm,
trail up a stop loss. That way, you've got the majority of your position open. Because although I'm saying like it's rallied into resistance, like it is looking weak overall, you still would have an epic trade entry, and you know it could surprise us, and it can rally to new all-time highs, right? There's nothing stop saying it cannot go to new all-time highs. So I would protect myself, lock in around 25%, take profit, move my stop loss into profits, and then that way, if it rallies to new all-time highs from here, amazing, right? You make even more money. And if it does drop, then you get stopped out in profits. And I would
yeah.
have that stop loss probably around like 2.3K more or less, not financial advice. But
Mm,
yeah, that's the way that I would kind of protect myself from a
mm-hmm.
drop, but also put myself in a position where I can profit more on more of a rally, which would be, I think everyone would love it if Ethereum rallied. So yeah, see if it happens.
Yeah, Dusty, do you also have like a general rule of thumb, like a percentage that you would abide by, like maybe 25% as well
Nah,
for your?
keep it open. We're not close to the top. No, but the honest truth, I have one trade open that's still at like a few 100% minus, by the way. Like a little side note, I should add that. But the way Just a little disclaimer. But from the way I do my trades anyway, it does not really matter. I think one bot setup I have kind of cuts it automatically every few $100s or so, or every few tens of dollars it goes up. But generally speaking, after hearing Daniel speak, you know, if you've been in your trade since 1500, it might be wise to cut some if you've not done it yet. I think most people already cut a pretty good chunk at $2,500 in ETH. I was aping into ETH at 2100, thinking I was the stupidest guy ever for aping up 20% candle in a day. But then it went to 2700. And at this point, every single day that continues on, I'm like, okay, this price is very freaking high from where it was just at. So from that angle, if you've not been cutting already, you're already holding that cap like, whoa, we're gonna go. So at that point, you might as well continue on the crazy trade. But for most people, otherwise, I think it might be a good idea to at least cash in something because you never know what's gonna happen tomorrow. But that's generally speaking always true, right? I mean, if you've made a ton of profit, it's always wise to cut some.
Cash out a little. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you know, every cycle we hear the same thing, right? Oh, ETH is dead, or ETH can't keep up with the new layer ones. Yet it continues to lead in smart contract activity and TVL. Why do you think this narrative keeps resurfacing? Is there any truth to it, or is it just like noise? What do you think, Dusty?
Yeah, no, I think ETH is kind of garbage, but we also have like an addiction to suffering. To some extent, you know, to get back to it every single time. That's obviously a joke. I think it's partially grandfathered in. So people just always go back to saying ETH always goes on a crazy run after Bitcoin has gone for one, and this time it will be the same as previous runs. So looking at Ethereum's past performance, I think most people look back and think, oh, whatever it did back then, in the previous run, for example, it'll probably do again. So you can't really say that about most of these other top coins out there, because if you're going to say that ETH is garbage or dead or can't keep up with the layer ones, every other layer one has different risks associated with it. A lot of them are either new or have so many other bad sides. Whatever made Ethereum good, a big part of it is that it was one of the first to make it so big, and that's also why people keep coming back to it. Now, I also kind of believe that every single run, ETH will stay at one of the top spots, I guess kind of until it doesn't, but at that point we'll see. There's, in my mind, not really something that's beating Ethereum right now for the second spot. And so, well, I think it's going to kind of remain to go on its course the way it's going right now.
Okay. And you know, looking at long-term Ethereum price structure, do you think like recent consolidation points toward bullish continuation, or are we due a correction soon? Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I would lean towards locally a pullback, just because we're at such a crucial point at this point of control. It you know, just generally speaking in trading, when you rally up to this point of control, it is a resistance level. And but Ethereum actually been a long time at this point of control now. So we've been 25 days just going sideways at the point of control. So it's starting to form a little bit of a ascending triangle. So we got some pattern forming like an ascending triangle, which is considered a bullish pattern, right? So it's a difficult trade, and this is where I would avoid maybe taking a trade, because there's a conflicting sign. It's like a bullish ascending triangle in a range point of control, which is resistance. You got like a bullish pattern at resistance, so it's a difficult trade, to be honest. But I mean, one is a lower term time frame ascending triangle versus a massive high term time frame point of control. So in that regards, you would feel that the point of control is a little bit stronger. So I would lean towards another pullback. But this is a nice buying opportunity, to be fair, on the pullback. That definitely would look to buy. I would, so to summarize, I wouldn't buy where we are here because it is resistance. But if it does pull back, I think there's really good buying opportunities back down and around 2,000 to 2,200. You know, this is a nice buying opportunity. But where we are right now, I would favor a pullback or prefer a pullback, let's say.
You know, on that note, someone actually asked, how can I tell the difference between a healthy pullback and a bearish reversal?
Yeah, so what I would be looking for is primarily here on the order flow. So what you'd be looking for on like a healthy pullback is open interest declining, tapering off volume, some form of like CVD divergences form, and this is like a pullback which is more a buying opportunity. Whereas if we start to pull back and open interest starts to massively increase, like volume is increasing, there's bearish divergences even forming on each pullback, then that's like a pullback where I'd say this is not healthy or not a buying opportunity. It more of a okay, it's one of those dips that's probably going to keep on dipping. um, so I'd mainly look at those factors.
Okay. And Dusty, considering the macroeconomic environment, including Federal Reserve policies, how might upcoming economic indicators affect Ethereum's price trajectory in the long term?
Yeah, I get you. So I wouldn't even look at the main things to look for when it comes to Bitcoin, like the treasury yields or the interest rate. I think, honestly, the most interesting thing to watch right now is Trump's talks with regards to tariffs. Because every single time he opens his mouth, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just whenever he starts talking about it or starts talking about reciprocals or new trade deals, the market makes a big shift or move. And even though I'd say it's primarily interesting for Bitcoin, since Bitcoin's the decision maker, it does reflect back over onto Ethereum. And so if I had to name one thing that's most interesting to watch with regards to price, it's going to be everything tariff related, everything in those type of statements related. I don't think you can fetch too much from Fed Powell's talks or decisions in the short term. I think mostly Trump. If you're talking about quick moves on the short to even medium term here, is going to be Trump's announcements or statements.
Okay, then in that case, with the SEC delaying decisions on like Ether staking ETFs, do you think that prolonged regulatory uncertainty could dampen Ethereum's growth prospects?
So,
Dustin?
okay, yeah. So, could you repeat it one more time, please?
With the SEC, delaying decisions on Ether staking ETFs, do you think that prolonged regulatory uncertainty could dampen Ethereum's growth prospects?
Yeah, it does. I mean, over on the short term, it obviously is a very negative impulse or negative, it has a negative effect. Over longer term, though, I mean, if we're taking a look at XRP or Bitcoin or even any other company that's faced a lot of scrutiny with the SEC, all it does is literally just move that timeline further a bit. It just takes time to get over it. We are quite certain, though, that all the main hurdles will be gotten over. So if we're talking about ETH staking, we know that eventually it will come, unless they come to some sort of conclusion that ETH staking as a concept should just not be done by most people, which is why an ETF might not come. But from every other angle, if staking is quote unquote allowed, it's just a matter of getting that on paper, getting it signed, getting it through. It literally takes time, but that's it. So if the question is, will this prolong things? Yeah, it takes more time. But then again, we established earlier in the stream that the ETH staking really doesn't matter that much. So from that angle, does it really matter? I don't know. I don't think so. Honestly, even if the staking ETF now comes, it's a big stamp. Oh, wow, we got it. And we do nothing with it because I'm not going to use it. I don't know anybody that's like, wow, this is the most amazing thing ever. Matter of fact, I'd like to argue that still most people would not choose the staking ETF over the normal one. Or it's just because they're quite ignorant of the additional risks that come with it. I don't think they're doing that to secure the network or anything like that. They're doing it for yield. But then again, what Daniel said earlier, 3% yield for all the additional risk? I don't know. I think Ethereum was the risk already.
It's not really worth it. And okay, so personally, how do you guys approach long-term Ethereum allocation? Is it just a core asset to hold and forget for you guys, or do you like actively rebalance over market cycles? Daniel, would you like to take this one first?
Yeah, so personally, I have 0% allocation in the Ethereum, but if I'm not looking for any long-term
Boo.
Ethereum. Yeah,
Boo.
I'm the big bear.
Get him off. No. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Continue on. You have 0%.
0% ETH, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do
real
you just
trader, huh?
Not so you don't really like. Okay, okay. What about you, Dusty?
All in? Nah, I'm not all in. Not at all. I do have ETH that I basically just never sell. There's positions that I open. I just told you one of them is down tremendously. You know, interesting. Interesting note. But for the most part, yeah, I just have it. It's locked. Never touch it. Not planning to touch it. Basically for the foreseeable future. Call me stupid for not wanting to touch these coins, but I still believe they'll be worth significantly more over time. And if you're not exactly sure, like Daniel, for example, if this is your business, this is your thing, all you do is look at the price and make your decisions off of that. It doesn't really make sense to also speculate on a bag like that. I get, but if it's not your main business, it does make sense that if you think it's going to go up over time, why not just keep a good portion of it? I don't know the percentage though as to how much I have in ETH, but it's not changed in a long time, like in the last few years. Just always hold it. Just keep it. It'll be worth more in the future, I always think.
Hopefully it will just go up only, right? To
Not
the moon,
financial
right? Not financial advice, yes. Okay, we'll just take a look at some questions from the audience. So I think this is in response to what Dusty said earlier. Do you think like Solana can be the next Ethereum? You know, there's a lot of talk about that, right? What do you think?
I mean, it could be. I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, it could be. I mean, I was gonna say I should not say that on the air. I'll keep some of the words to myself. But let me just say like this: theoretically speaking, any crypto could be the next number two. It's just a pretty small chance. I mean, like Daniel just said about these confirmations. Really, you only know once it happens. Trying to predict the next big runner is like picking a needle in a haystack. You just don't know. There's nothing that can pinpoint it into being better. Because what really makes it better? More TVL or more what? Which numbers you looking at? People have been saying this for so many years that, oh, it's better because of this, oh, it's better because of that. Yet nothing has overtaken it. So as of that point, I could say, yeah, it could. But will it? It doesn't really matter.
Okay, and someone asked, do you foresee Ethereum flipping Bitcoin and market cap within the next few years? What would it take?
I'll let Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say no. I would. I've also heard people talk about this for the past like 10 years, right? People have always been saying, "Oh, it's going to be the flip, what they called it, flippening, and all this type of stuff." But I think it's I thought it was unlikely years ago, and I think it's even more unlikely today. I just cannot see any way that Ethereum can flip Bitcoin's market cap. I mean, Bitcoin is just massive now, right? And it's just getting more and more bigger. I personally would be extremely surprised if Ethereum flipped. Not to say it's not possible, it could happen, but I think it would take a lot and some crazy bit of fundamental change, which I just cannot see happening. So yeah, my opinion is that's likely to never happen, but maybe there's a 0.1% chance.
Mhm. At least in the
How
near.
about quality assets like Trump coin maybe? You know, do you think that can overtake Bitcoin?
Potentially Trump coin. That seems like the new ETH, I reckon. But maybe Trump coin. Everything else, not a chance.
Okay, so you know, ETH's price action has been anything but boring lately, right? And for short-term traders, volatility means opportunity. So let's take a look. So funding rates have flipped positive, but are still relatively low. Does that, Daniel, does that give you more confidence to hold leverage positions, or do you think that that's like being complacent?
Yeah, to be honest, like what it is definitely advantageous when the funding rate is low or negative to hold Ethereum longs. That's for sure. But I wouldn't say that influences me taking a trade on Ethereum just because the funding rate is low. It's nice to hold Ethereum longs if you're not paying a bunch in funding, definitely. But yeah, that doesn't equate to wanting to take a long on Ethereum just because of that. Um, so I would say, yeah, that the funding rate is nice that it's low. It definitely helps holding Ethereum longs, but yeah, I wouldn't long just because of this factor alone. It's too small of a detail to be anything majorly important.
Okay, and Dusty, you know, with Ethereum now outperforming Bitcoin just a bit, and and the ETH Bitcoin ratio is on the rise. Do you see this as do you think that the rumors of having an alt season soon could be true? And how does this influence your short-term strategy when charting ETH against USD?
So again, to get back to our earlier statement, ETH is doing okay, but it's definitely not doing that good relative to, first of all, a lot of altcoins. And second of all, if you compare it to where it's previously been at, it's still pretty bad. Pretty. I won't say the words again, but just not doing that good. Pretty bottomy, pretty bad. So from that angle, does this showcase altcoin season? I would say no. Many more alts are showing a lot more strength, but even now, I wouldn't say that this is where everybody feels too euphoric or feels crazy just quite yet. Matter of fact, it feels a bit pessimistic. I mean, I just heard Daniel say that we might be going down a bit. No, in a good market, everybody's screaming for the hills, for the top of the top. So, no, I would not say that this little move in ETH means alt season is here.
Okay, and let's say you only have like a couple of hours each day. Do you think that Ethereum is still worth trading, or are other assets more efficient for like short-term gains?
Yeah, I would say definitely like Ethereum's tradable at like for sure. Even yeah, my simple answer is definitely Ethereum is more than tradable on a lower term time frame, 100%. Do I think there are some better assets to trade? Yes. I mean, when I just think about off the top of my head, like Bonk right now is really fun to trade. Solana is really fun to trade. Pepe is always fun to trade. Fun like they're more percentage moves, so they are better to trade in that regards. But definitely Ethereum as an asset on its own is yeah, still good to trade. I think that there are better assets as mentioned, but Ethereum still definitely you can be trading it every day, definitely.
Will this convince you to trade Ethereum?
I think I personally I've not really spent that much time trading Ethereum just because I've been trading the other coins. And Ethereum is a little bit slow, but I do know people that are trading it in Chart Champions and they are actually making profits trading it. But so yeah, I can definitely say you can trade it and make profits right now, but there's just maybe more profits to be had on like Pepe
Other
on a
coin.
direct
With higher volatility. But once again, not financial advice, guys.
Yeah.
Dusty, you had something to add on earlier?
Maybe. I don't, not 100% sure which part. But when it comes to the last question, then I think it's always worth considering almost any coin, especially if the overall idea is that the price are going to go up over time. Which I think most people have for ETH, Bitcoin, and a lot of those top coins. Is it worth it trading a few hours a day? If you're talking about buying, selling, so a lot of quick trades. Theoretically speaking, any asset, regardless of volatility, could be worth it, at least if there's some. Now, with ETH, I think you could literally just spend all day just clicking the buy button, and if you look back over a longer amount of time, not financial advice, it could actually be in a really good spot. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it could be. So from that angle, anything is worth putting the time into, and even if you're not actively taking those trades, it's just worth it to set yourself up. And maybe at some point you realize, hey, you start out with ETH, you realize there's not any opportunities following your strategy, and you move over into other assets like maybe a Bank, Pepe, whatever other coins you just mentioned. So at that point, it is nice to at least look at ETH, give it some consideration. Or maybe if you have a significant sum of money and you don't like the volatility on the other ends, maybe from that angle, ETH is actually nicer than a Pepe or a Bank or whatever.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Someone from the audience actually asked, can you explain why Ethereum funding rates matter and how should traders interpret them day to day?
Yeah, so the funding rate on, I'm just going to actually load up the Ethereum chart just so I say the actual right figure. Bear with me literally 1 second. So I imagine that Ethereum against Tether right now. So yeah, we're on like a 0.01% funding rate right now. So basically, if you hold Ethereum longs every 8 hours, you're paying 0.01%. And if the funding rate is negative, then every 8 hours, and you're in a, so if it's negative, then you are getting paid. And if it is positive, then you are having to pay, in terms of if you're holding a long, you have to pay. And if you are holding a short, then you get paid. So the funding rate at 0.01% paid every 8 hours, of course, for many, it's not really that big of an importance, because the funding rate is really small. The only way you'd obviously care about this, if you're planning to hold it for like a year, let's say, then that's going to be adding up, because what this is going to be on, again, this funding rate changes all the time, so it's not always the same. But let's say on an average year, this averages at around 3-4, maybe maximum you would reach is 5% if it goes a little bit more positive. But it's something to weigh in. But then I would always, and I would always say that if you're looking for a long-term hold like that, you might as well just buy spot. I don't know why you would buy a leveraged contract for long-term personally. But yeah, short term, the funding rate is nice. So if, for example, if I saw Ethereum at like negative 0.1%, then I'd be like, oh, that generally makes me think, oh, a lot of people are shorting Ethereum, so it can look for a rally. So if the funding rate goes really negative, then I'd be like, a little bit more interested in Ethereum, like leverage longs, because you're getting paid to hold that long trade, which is all, in terms of the funding rate, you're getting paid to hold the Ethereum long. And it also generally signifies that there's a lot of people shorting, and I would view that like, well, if a lot of people are shorting, you would also want to line it up with a technical reason to long. I wouldn't just long just because of the funding rate. But if you've come down to a technical level of support, the funding rate is really negative, that means you would say a lot of people are bearish and short in Ethereum. So you can kind of take the leverage long, you're at support, so you have the idea of longing anyway. And then you see a really negative funding rate, you're like, oh, perfect, every 8 hours I get paid 0.1%, which that's a really good funding rate, because generally it's like 0.01. So if it goes to 0.1 and a big negative funding rate, yeah, it leans me up to having it. I would call it like another confluence factor of wanting to long. Whereas if the funding rate is 0.1, like positive, well, that's a really expensive funding rate, and it would generally mean, or a lot of people are longing this Ethereum, and a lot of people are, it's kind of that euphoria stage when you get such high funding rates. Again, you can still long from an intraday perspective, and maybe, if you're looking for another 5% rise, it doesn't really matter about paying 0.1%. But if you're looking at a long-term, several weeks to months even, and it's the funding rate 0.1, well, that probably means you already had a massive rally and it's kind of reaching this euphoria stage. So I would factor that in as like a confluence of being more bearish if the funding rate is really positive.
Right. Thanks for the explanation, Daniel.
Sorry.
We're breaking it down so clearly. Okay, we've heard the long-term case, we've heard like the short-term case, but real strategy comes down to you, right? Your risk appetite, your schedule, your goals. So let's take a look into that, right? So, newer traders often feel like they're too late when ETH pumps and panic buy or overtrade. What's a good framework to avoid FOMO while still staying active? Let's hear from Dusty.
Honestly, I think that's specifically Daniel's part. So even though I think specifically his answer would fit here. I'd want to talk, but I think this is his area of expertise.
Sorry, you're gonna have to repeat the question. I zoomed out when I thought it was for Dusty.
My bad, bro.
Okay. No worries. Newer traders often feel like they're too late when Ethereum pumps and panic buy or overtrade. What's a good framework to avoid FOMO while still staying active? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, perfect. So yeah, I definitely, like, I see a lot of people. Obviously, we do an educational course, so a lot of people are newer traders. So I see a lot of common mistakes, and one of the most common mistakes is people get super bullish when it pumps, and not just Ethereum, but anything, right? Everyone, it always makes me laugh because everybody's always super obsessed with altcoins, right? Everyone has like 100 different altcoins they're looking at, And generally speaking, what they will do is they'll have 100 altcoins on their watch list, and they'll trade the altcoin which is just pumped 100%, let's say. And so they start trading the altcoins after they've already pumped, thinking, oh, it's just going to go up and up and up. So, the best advice, or the best like tips that I would give myself, let's say, is if something's already pumped really hard and you were not in from the bottom, I personally would just say, well, I've missed that trade. There's another 99. There's another 99 altcoins to trade. Let's try and find the one that hasn't pumped yet, rather than FOMOing in on something that has pumped. And I know it's easier said than done easier said than done to not chase the green. But if you just have a really big rule and maybe print it out and write it on your screen, it just says, do not chase a pump. If it's already pumped, just say you've missed the trade, and you got to wait for a retracement. Even these coins that pump 100% in a day, whatever, they're going to pull back, they're going to have a retracement. So just never buy when it's in the middle or on a big pump. You just simply have to accept that you've missed it. It really doesn't matter, to be honest. You just have to accept that you missed it, and wait. If you really care about that asset, wait for it to pull back, because it will pull back for sure. And I think that's the bit where it's hard, because I remember again, back on Pepe, but I remember Pepe back when it was pumping really hard, probably about a year and a half ago, and it's a hard one because it doesn't do a big pullback until it's already pumped. So on some assets you can wait for a pullback and it kind of feels like it's not going to pull back, and that is just part of the game. You just have to still say, oh, I've missed it. And then I know a lot of people, like, they live in hindsight, saying, oh, if I had pumped it after 100% pump, it went on to pump 200%. But 9 times out of 10 you buy the coin that's pumped 100% and it drops massively. So it's just a good rule of thumb to just accept when you've missed out, and truly it doesn't matter. Although many people might try and make it feel like it matters, it really doesn't matter if you miss a coin pumping. It doesn't matter. There's 100 other coins out there, more than that, of course. Like, there's so many coins out there. Just find one that hasn't pumped, and don't chase the green.
Yeah, but it's true though. But it's a common
let me
mistake.
quickly say.
Yes,
Let me quickly say. I think that is the professional answer. Right? That's why I wanted to hear him say it, because I think that's what most people should hear. This is what they should get in their heads, that the moment it's so freaking green, you stay away, because that's smart. Big words, smarty smart. But in reality, right, what I think most people do, and I think actually does work in a good market, is just because it's pumped a lot doesn't mean it can't pump a significant amount more. And feeling wise, I think a lot of people would prefer to feel the idea of, I caught a small little pump at the end, so something like that, then miss out on seeing a coin they did not decide to buy go up 7,000 more percent. At Pepe, for example, you wanted to press buy because it's up like 40%, whatever, but you didn't because it's up 40%. Just like maybe 3 weeks ago, whatever, I bought ETH when it went from 1,700, I think, to 2,100 in a day. Clicked it, bam. I shaking, looking at my screen because it's up so much. But then the price went to what, 2,700 or so. If I did not press that buy button, click, I would have hated myself for a little bit. And so I think for most people, FOMO is fine. As long as, not financial advice, as long as you don't overdo it, and also understand that you're buying into the momentum that eventually for sure will fade, and that you are going to have to sell it at some point, not keep holding it forever. And you realize it's in phases. All right, whatever goes up must come back down at some point. And you're not buying it because it's undervalued as much. You're buying it because there's momentum. So you're buying it for a different reason. You're not trying to look for the most undervalued gem that nobody's seen. No, you're trying to buy something that's pumping because it hopefully keeps on pumping. You try to do this when the market's good. You try to do the other one. Theoretically speaking, you can always do that. But they're different sort of strategies. Again, if you want the professional answer, don't FOMO into anything. If you want the realistic thing, it's FOMOing in a good market, in the crazy bull markets or whatever, it almost always does work until it doesn't.
I think, but in moderation, right?
Yeah. I also would bounce on top of that and saying, like the FOMO longing, like on a breakout, is good. And from like my perspective, if you have a strategy of momentum breakouts, so rather than, of course, you can just press the buy button and buy, but I also know people that have like the momentum strategy, and they know, or when it pumps this much, they have a strategy behind like buying that breakout sort of thing. And so I definitely agree with like Dusty there, that you can of course, buy and make more money on the rise, and just because it's pumped 40%, it can pump another 4,000%. And if you have like a good, that's the only thing I'd say, like having a little bit of a strategy, just knowing what you're looking for exactly, like you can definitely buy the breakouts and make loads of money, like definitely.
And just don't let the greed blind you, right? Make sure that you take profits and don't just keep thinking, no, it's just gonna pump even harder and I'll get out at the top. You are unlikely to really hit the top, right?
Yeah, not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Okay, and so
Sorry,
yes.
no, I'm good.
All right, so let's say someone has $1,000 in ETH. What's a smart way to allocate it between long-term um, investment and active trading? Would you say like, 80% you will hold it in spot, and 20% you actively trade, or how would you allocate it?
I guess I'll go first. Personally, on a really personal perspective, I would go 100% on trading. But I think for probably on most people, let's say watching, they probably should go like 80% long-term hold and 20% trading, to be honest. So that would be my answer.
Uh, Dusty?
I'd counter it. Say most people should go 100% spot, not trade anything at all. What most people should do. Then again, it also depends on how much they want to do with this. And if this is going to be the new life, and you only have spot, you're gonna be watching your money all day. You can't do nothing, right? So from that angle, I think maybe put a higher percentage in trading. But if again the idea is, oh, I'll look back at it every few weeks, I'll open my app. Yeah, and then the less time you want to spend on it, the more it should be in spot, the more it should be in holding. If you actively want to make it more, not saying it's going to be easy, but obviously the higher percentage it could be in trading. If your idea is really to flip this into a crazy amount over time, actively, there's even a good argument to be made as to why it should be 100% in your trading box and 0% spot. Because just like Daniel just said, why even have the asset at all if you're going to trade it all day anyway? Like, why you want to double risk it? It doesn't really make too much sense. But again, if you're going to only watch it every now and then, I don't think that's a very good idea to have too much in your trading pot. Because again, you might never trade then. On the opposite angle, sure. Whatever, I've said what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's an excellent answer. Yeah.
All right. Have you ever misjudged your own risk appetite, and how did it impact your trade or holdings? Dusty, it sounds like you've had a traumatic experience. Would you like to share?
Man, please, I hope you guys cannot even see my accounts. If I really hope that nobody at the Bybit internal can see what type of accounts I've blown up and this. All right, I think that should be illegal. It should be a warning sign, But in all fairness, I think any good market can make you misjudge. It can make you feel as like a superhero. You can turn $20 into millions of dollars. People have done it. It happens. And then all of a sudden you feel like the king. You feel like you can do it every single time. You feel like it's only going to become more and more and more. In reality, in a bull market, everybody's a hero. Almost every single person that gets in at the quote-unquote right time does well. And the most important thing for almost anybody out there is to realize how good the opportunity is. You're not that special for making a lot of money when the market's only green. And you should definitely realize some of that, not just keep it floating forever, especially the smaller market cap the coin is. Realize that they most likely will go back down 90, 95, maybe 99%. You're not going to beat it. You're not going to sell at the exact top, but that's fine. Again, the goal is to make, I guess, gains of sort. It's not to be a perfect maybe for Daniel it is, but it's not, in my opinion, the goal to be a perfect trader, to make every right decision. The goal is to get whatever you started with and make it more, all right? And again, one lapse of judgment, one mistake, 10 mistakes, 100 mistakes, it's all fine. People will make mistakes. But the idea is that at the end, you increase your bankroll. And even if it takes time, it goes down lower for a while. As long as eventually throughout the years it goes up, you're good. Because mistakes will be made for sure. Even I sometimes make some big-ass mistakes. But at the end, as long as it's calculated, as long as you know what you can afford to lose, I don't think it's that bad.
All right. Thank you, Dusty. What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, no, I agree with Dusty on a lot of those points. To be honest, it's like, yeah, there is no such thing as a perfect trader where you're going to win every single trade. That's just like not possible. The biggest importance, right? Yeah, it comes down to risk management. And so if you have a good system, for example, I only want to risk 1% of my portfolio per trade, then you know that's a good way of approaching risk. Whereas I know a lot of people when they first start, they'll have $10,000, and on every trade they just enter a position size of $10,000, or leverage they just enter $100,000 sort of thing. So most people just have no idea of how to position size correctly, and every trade is some random position size, which is totally normal if you don't really know what you're doing, right? So that's why I think a lot of people lose and blow up and like end up losing the majority of their crypto, is because they never really put on the correct position sizes. Like you probably all seen this James Wynn guy, right? He went from $0, let's say, to $80 million, and then he went from $80 million to $0 in like 2 days. Like he lost everything, and I just couldn't believe. That's what I also don't really believe that this is real, but nevertheless, I just cannot see a world where you make 80 million and you don't cash this out. Like, I cannot see that it's real, because that's just crazy. Even if you just cash out 10 million, it's like, yeah, you can live off this, man, forever.
Yeah,
So
Little insert. He went from zero, as let's say his account balance zero on the 5th of May, to peak, let's say 80-ish million or so, the 22nd of May, and then right now minus 24-ish, minus 26 million or so. So basically,
it's crazy.
100 million, 105 million down from peak to like, what,
Crazy.
last week.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it's like this is crazy. Like that's fully crazy. But yeah, I mean, so that's like an extreme example, but like from everyday people, like we hear it all the time. People come in and say, "Oh, I made so much money in the bull market and I lost it all." You know, time and time and time again, people make life-changing gains and then they live in regret because they never sold anything. And so I always think you never lost money by taking profits. Yeah, a lot of people live in regret. Oh, I sold for $10,000 profit when I could have made $50,000 profit. But guess what? Making $10,000 profit is more than the majority of people, because eventually it comes down again, like Dusty was saying. So like, yeah, take some profits, use good risk management, and you're way ahead of 99% of people in long term, to be, unless you invest in Bitcoin, because that's like a good asset to invest in, right?
Definitely. All right. We're running out of time. We'll just cover one last question from the audience. Maybe you guys both can just say something short. How should new investors approach Ethereum right now? Buy the hype, wait for correction, or avoid? Just a quick answer from both of you guys.
Yeah, so my final word there would be, yeah, wait for a pullback, unless it gets a reclaim above 0.026. But I would personally wait for a bit of a pullback, which is a good long opportunity from the USD around $2,000-ish. Yeah.
Dusty?
And I would say, depending on what type of investor or trader you are, you might as well just close your eyes and click buy. Eventually, my opinion, not finished advice. I think if you eventually look back, it'll be worth more. But if you're asking on the short term, hey, I'm not even sure what the price is at right now, like 26 some. It is pretty high in comparison to where it was at a few weeks ago. But like I said before, you know, just because it's up a bit doesn't mean it can't go up a lot more. And theoretically speaking, Bitcoin was at 70,000 in the 2021 run, and ETH was at maybe 4,500. Right now, Bitcoin is significantly higher than that, and ETH is still quite low. So from that angle, ETH is not up that much. Maybe for the next few weeks or months, you might hate yourself for a little bit. You might think, hey, what was this guy talking about? But then again, if you think a few months further than that, I think you're probably in a good spot. So I would just buy anyway. Just close your eyes and maybe click that button, even though it feels irresponsible for the short term. But I think eventually you'll thank yourself.
All right, not financial advice once again. And that brings us to the end of today's live stream. Thank you all for joining us, and a huge shout out to Daniel and Dusty for the insights, strategies, and very honest takes. So if you still have questions or want to go deeper, head over to the Bybit Learn community. You can share your views, get trading insights, and earn rewards while you're at it. As usual, please note that once again, none of this is meant to be financial advice, and the topics discussed are purely for educational purposes. For more information, please visit our Bybit Learn website, and don't forget to connect with all of us on social media. Thanks again to everyone who tuned in live, and we'll see you on the next Bybit Learn live stream. Bye-bye.
Woo! Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.